You are a manifestor, one of 8% of the population who is here to initiate and inform. Your signature theme is a sense of peace and grounding. And when you are in the not self, you can be angry. So I am super excited to dive into the manifestor type with you today. So manifestors are incredible people. And when we think about the manifestor aura, the aura of a manifestor is sort of this piercing and penetrating aura. I always like to think of it sort of as like an arrow. And the reason why manifestors are so powerful is because of their aura. And as a result of their power, they often make other people slightly uncomfortable because of the fact that they have this sort of piercing arrow-like aura. Now, there are 3 types of manifestors. So there is the pure manifestor, which has a defined spleen. There is an emotional manifestor, which would have emotional authority and a defined solar plexus, and a self-projected manifestor, which will have the defined heart with the 2145 channel connected directly to the throat. And so when we think about manifestors, right? Manifestors are here to initiate. They are catalysts for change in this world. They are here to transform. They are here to sort of initiate people into things, right? They're sort of to wake people up and get them on the right path. And the reality is that initiation is sort of this whooshing of energy, right? It's almost like an Acela train that can potentially sometimes forget to stop at the station. And so when we think about the manifestor strategy, they're here to initiate, they're here to create change, they're here to be a catalyst, and they have tremendous starting power. Okay. They have tremendous starting power. And for manifestors, they have to do this sort of informing thing. And informing for manifestors can be a challenge because it doesn't necessarily come naturally to them. Informing for manifestors comes as a result of really easing tension in their relationships. Because oftentimes when they initiate, they leave the people in their lives sort of like in the dust. Like what just happened here? And so manifestors inform to avoid turbulence in their relationships and avoid themselves making others angry, making themselves angry. And they are wildly independent people. So manifestors are here to sort of do it their own way. They're here to be independent. They're here to, kind of be like a lone wolf, right? They're here to sort of create change in this world. And manifestors, they love to spend time alone. And they do have this sort of potent piercing aura. So oftentimes when you walk into a room as a manifestor, you can kind of like create unease with other people. And that's okay. That's just part of the mechanics of your design. So it becomes something to become aware of when you are, say, in a room with a whole bunch of new people. It's important for manifestors to understand that. And so when we think about that manifestor strategy of initiation and informing, it's important for you as a manifestor to understand that you can't force initiations on a manifestor. They just kind of happen, and they are often like a runaway train. And so when a manifestor has one of these sort of their initiations, they will almost behave in a sort of superhuman way. And they tend to just have like boundless amounts of energy to do and do and do and do. And then they'll go into what we call a manifestor rest cycle, where they may just take it easy for 1 or 2 or 3 weeks. And so it's important to understand for you as a manifestor that your work, whatever that might look like, should support you in allowing you to have time to work, and where periods where you could work really hard for long periods of time and then rest for periods of time. And so when we think about this initiation and informing train, as I like to say, it's really important to remember that as a manifestor, you might struggle when people interrupt you. Manifestors have a tendency to lose their train of thought easily. And so informing people around you and saying, hey, when you interrupt me, I lose my train of thought and it's incredibly hard for me to get that train of thought back, may in fact be wise. And then when we think about informing, because informing doesn't come naturally to manifestors, it becomes really important to understand and say, who are the ideal key people in my inner circle that need to know what I am doing? And so I always encourage the manifestors that I work with to pick 5 people in their business and 5 people in their personal life that they're going to inform. Informing for manifestors is not about telling somebody, hey, I'm going to do this thing and expecting feedback. And a lot of times people will feedback to you as a manifestor. Oh, you're like, oh, I'm going to change the date of my launch, or I'm going to do this thing. And then people will say back to you, yeah, but da, 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 da. Informing for manifestors isn't about getting that feedback. It's about letting you know, here's the thing that I'm going to do. And then not allowing the person to change or control the thing that you are doing as a manifestor. It's simply about informing out of courtesy to avoid turbulence in your relationships. Because manifestors, they're incredibly driven. They're incredibly self-motivated. They can do things with a lot of speed. While they may not be great finishers, they're incredibly great at starting things. Okay. And so they sort of have this very dichotomous relationship with control. And that often stems from childhood, because manifestor aura is piercing, it's potent, it's penetrating. And so adults in their lives, particularly when they're children, might feel the need to control the manifestors in their life. Like, no, you can't do that. No, you can't do this. Or they might just feel on ease in the manifestor's presence. And so what happens is the other, potentially a parent or a teacher, may control the manifestor more than really needs to be done, because manifestors, they're naturally independent people. So they have this sort of dichotomous relationship with control. So they fear being controlled by others, and others fear being controlled by the manifestor. And so there's sort of this dance that a manifestor needs to do with control. And when we think about that from the perspective of informing, we're not informing people so that they can change our mind. Informing without changing what you are doing is actually key for your health as a manifestor, right? And the reciprocity for manifestors of like informing them as well, right? So if I'm a projector and I'm working with a manifestor, informing them of X, Y, and Z happening, they're going to be really appreciative of that. And so really understanding that informing is an unnatural part of the manifestor's strategy. However, it is a key part of avoiding turbulence inside the manifestor's relationships. And oftentimes manifestors are like, I'll just go it alone. And the reality is part of the reason why they feel that way is often because they've been controlled by others. They've failed to initiate people, and therefore they've created turbulence in their relationships, which often results as anger. And the reality is there's sort of this beautiful balance that can happen with these initiations and this whooshing of manifestor energy at the start, because manifestors, they're great catalysts for change, right? They're here to help people sort of like wake them up and get them on the right path. And so when they think about that informing aspect of a manifestor, it is so that those people that are close to them can understand, hey, I'm going into one of my initiation cycles. I'm informing you of this thing that is happening out of respect for our relationship. I don't want you to be blindsided by me going to do X, Y, and Z. And I always say for manifestors, because I've worked with many manifestors who fail to inform, and then they end up in this not self cycle of anger and feeling really alone and feeling very controlled or feeling like they have no control. And that is a real challenge for manifestors. Manifestors, from my experience, are some of the most deeply conditioned of the types because of their piercing aura. They often make people feel very uncomfortable, particularly in early childhood. And as a result, they're often they're often more tied down than their counterparts, right? Because they're like, oh, this person's making me feel uneasy, particularly say like in a classroom setting, right? When you have a teacher and the dynamic between like a teacher and a manifestor student. And I bring this up because I think there's a lot of deconditioning that manifestors have to work with, right? And they really kind of have to get to the root of that, all of that. And from my experience, it often stems from a parent or a school setting that they end up in this place of this not self. They feel like I'm not powerful, and they sort of give their power away. And they don't really feel like aligned or congruent with that powerful, catalytic, transformational manifestor self. And so when we think about the not self of the manifestor, it starts at a very early age because they're often conditioned to sort of shrink their power to make the adults in their life feel comfortable. And I have a manifestor son, and I've witnessed him do this for the adults in his life, not for my husband and I, but I've witnessed him do this for adults that are around them. So one of the things that can happen, because a manifestor like you has a piercing aura, they can feel like no one cares about them, and they can feel very alone, and they can feel very like nobody gets me. And that is in part due to the mechanics of the aura and the design that a manifestor has. And so they can often feel this sense of shame and disappointment and anger because they're different than the adults in their life, and their adults don't always necessarily get them. And whenever I get a manifestor client, they don't always relate to being a manifestor. They are, without a doubt, when I get a manifestor client, they're the ones that relate to being a manifestor the least. And so they wonder, right? Manifestor always wonder, why is everybody so concerned with me? Why is everybody trying to control me? I'm just here trying to do my own thing. And so as a result, they can be totally out of alignment with their power. They can really struggle to communicate with others as a result of the conditioning that they have. They tend to hide their power, particularly those with an undefined solar plexus, because they don't want to create turbulence in their life. They're like, I don't want to rock the boat. Don't want to make people feel any more uncomfortable than they already do in my presence. And the reality is, it then results them in feeling like they are a lone wolf. And at the end of the day, you as a manifestor, you just crave peace and understanding, but they tend to struggle to find it, right? And their initiations create this turbulence in their life. It's like, one day you're sitting there laying on the couch eating chips and salsa, and the next you're like, I started this business, I did this thing, I did it, and you go into like one of those manifestor initiation cycles, and people are like, what is going on here? And so those initiations create this turbulence in their life, which then creates anger. And so the manifestors, they're angry because everyone's trying to control them and change what they're doing. They're angry because they're not in their power. They're angry because they initiated, and, now everyone's mad at them. And at the end of the day, they often then default to acting like a generator and responding to everything instead of being in that manifestor power. And so when we think about this not self theme of anger for manifestors, they have outbursts due to being controlled. They have anger from failing to inform. They create turbulence in their relationships. They don't honor their authority, particularly emotional manifestors. And if you are an emotional manifestor, there will be an audio specifically for that. So they don't honor this authority that's sort of inherent within them. And then they're often labeled as lazy because manifestors are not great at finishing. They're amazing starters, but they struggle to finish, right? So if you're a manifestor and you're in business, you want to find somebody who can help you finish because you're an amazing starter, but it's going to be the struggle bus to get you to finish. But the reality is, as a manifestor, it's not your job to finish. Okay. They can often feel like they're not being heard or they're constantly interrupted. They can feel a lot of shame and guilt and disappointment in themselves because of being controlled, controlling. And they can feel a lot of shame and guilt and disappointment in others because they fail to inform. And when we think about what does a congruent manifestor actually look like, it is someone who honors their need to be alone. It's someone who honors their need to process and takes time to really dispel the energy of others. Because as a manifestor, you have an undefined sacral. And the sacral is where we take in all of this energy of doing and amplify it. So when I think of an aligned and congruent manifestor, they are people who take time alone to process. They are people who have practices like taking a daily walk or having a dance party where they dispel the energy of others. I often think of manifestors sort of like a cat. They're kind of like, I'm ready for you to pet me now, or I am here and I'm taking a nap and I need you to leave me alone. I think of that all the time with my manifestor son. He will go in his room and he has a bunk bed and he'll put up this little curtain that he has. And he's just like, I need to be alone. And he very much honors that need in his body. So as an adult manifestor for you, I would really make sure you honor that need that you have to be alone. And it's not selfish. It's not self-serving. That is how manifestors are designed to operate. They're designed to spend time alone, and they're designed to have periods of time where they are with others. And so when they are congruent with their design, they feel this sense of peace, this sense of flow, this sense of ease, this like, they feel like they just feel at peace in their bodies. And so when they're also congruent with their design and when they're initiating and informing and the people in their lives aren't trying to control them, they've really come to this conclusion that they are not alone and that they have people that they can rely on, especially people to help them finish, to bring things across the finish line. And so an aligned and congruent manifestor really honors the ebbs and flows of their energy. So if they're in business for themselves, they really understand that they have to design their business model around sort of these bursts of energy and then these periods of rest time. And then they also are here to really make sure they have downtime in their day. Manifestors aren't here to be on 24/7, 365. And so making sure that there's space in their day to actually be able to sort of dispel that doing energy of others is key for them. And then of course, calmness is a theme that is key in an aligned manifestor. They'll always sort of have this sense of calm and peace about them when they are congruent with their design. And when I see manifestors, aligned manifestors in business, they are people who thrive in an environment like pressure launches, like big bursts of energy, and then a lot of downtime. Manifestors are really here. They're here to get in. get change with someone, and then get out. Manifestors are not here to sort of lock arms with people and walk alongside them on this 1-year journey. Manifestor containers where they thrive are containers where they get in, they get somebody a transformation, and they get out. And manifestors don't really like to repeat themselves. So if you're in a business as a manifestor where you're constantly having to say the same thing over and over again, it's going to make you crazy. And so I'd encourage you to think about what are business models and marketing things where you can come in, you can get change, and you don't necessarily have to be consistent and be on 24/7, 365. And that goes for the corporate world as well, right? Like, how can you set yourself up for success to align with these bursts of energy that you have, and then also have some periods of downtime? And that's a really key thing. And some of the most successful manifestors that I have seen are people who work seasonally. They work with a client for 2 or 3 months. They work with a client in a very specific container with a very specific outcome that creates sort of catalytic change. And then they move on to the next set of people. And that is really how manifestors are designed to operate in this world. They come in, they work with somebody, they get out. They come in, they work with somebody, and they get out. They're not here to sort of lock arms and sing kumbaya and all of that sort of stuff. As a manifestor, you are energetic, powerful, effective, impulsive, and mysterious. You have a unique ability to start and initiate. This could be conversations, business ideas, stories. You are here to initiate. You can embrace this ability to start without waiting. You are fiercely independent and are at ease in the solitude of your environment. You must pair your initiating with informing, especially in relationships. Learning to inform is a key part of your journey. While informing doesn't necessarily need to change what you are planning on doing, this will ensure that the key parties involved are aware so that they aren't blindsided by whatever new, incredible endeavor or idea you have decided to embark on. You are very internally self-focused and goal-oriented. Understanding and embracing and becoming aware of this will serve you well, since many of the other types are focused on collaboration. When you embrace your strategy of informing and take note of the key relationships that will be affected by your actions, you show love and respect for the others involved. This goes both ways for manifestors like you, as you like to be informed by others as well. Create intentional breaks and downtime in your work because you are here to initiate, and that initiating energy will run out. You must discharge, get rid of the energy of the day that you have collected before your head hits the pillow at night. You have a deep desire for peace and a place of no resistance and control. You are here to dream big and pursue your vision while doing it on your own terms. You are living your strategy when you find yourself in a state of peace. It is when you are living that strategy that you will manifest and make an impact in the world. You do best when you can let your ideas flow. Inform the key people in your life that interruptions to your train of thought will throw you off. And if they can, please avoid interrupting you when you are in that flow because it is helpful. So what does all of this mean for you in business? As a manifestor, you might find yourself the lone wolf, and that's okay. That works for you. You will be best suited in a business where you have a clear and definitive start and stop period when working with clients. It is best for you to get in, get out, get a client transformation, and then move on. You have a lot of starting energy. However, that energy can and will run out when it comes time to finish. Partner up with somebody who can help you finish when you inevitably run out of energy. You may resist informing others, but often that comes from childhood where you were told no. Realizing that in order to grow your business, you need others, and informing them of your plan is an important aspect of this. Otherwise, you will burn bridges along the way. You can practice your informing through your marketing and your social media by sharing what is going on in your business, what you are learning, what's happening behind the scenes, informing them of your next action you plan to take. Your energy can be overwhelming to others. Become aware of this. It is important for you to pair with a projector who can help guide you on your journey, as they can see you deeply and they can help you find peace while avoiding anger. You often rebel against being controlled, and others worry that they will be controlled by you. Informing is going to be key to this resistance in business. As a manifestor, I encourage you to step into your power, own who you are, and initiate. You are here to be a catalyst for the world.